Good morning. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network on this Wednesday, December 10th on a blustery day in Washington, D.C. We hope you're doing well in your neck of the woods. I'm Robert McNeely. We are focused on what's happening in the Trump administration. And last night, many grand comments, whether it was different news outlets to personalities throughout our land, talking about the energy of President Donald Trump. We'll break that down in a moment. Secretary Kennedy to make a MAHA announcement, Make America Healthy Again. A big focus of this administration was Secretary Brooke Rollins. We're also watching closely for a House GOP conference to take place. We'll take you there live when that does happen. Now, Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats both putting onto the table health care plans in regards to reforming or either protecting Obamacare. This is a big thing that happened in the first term that was meant to be reformed, but really never got to, for a number of different reasons, from lobbyists to Democrat obstructionists to the fact that, as Ronald Reagan put it, the closest thing to eternal life that there is on earth is that of a federal government program. Just look at Social Security that was once meant to be temporary, a massive part of our lives to this present day. But this president focused on scaling back and rolling back those big government initiatives over the course of the 20th century, breaking that down especially in the Department of Education, and fitting earlier in his term that he would have students, children surrounding him to help join in the signing of that executive order, was Secretary Linda McMahon focused on the 10th Amendment and federalism. And going against the narrative that was no child left behind and one size fits all, with a bipartisan chorus really echoing how awful that legislation was. And that's when I was going through my core schooling. Back when that passed, I was in middle school, and I remember the controversy even from liberals regarding Ted Kennedy's hallmark legislation, the liberal lion from Massachusetts, and then being signed by a Republican president, George W. Bush, and the failure that was, truly leaving too many children behind. And then we had the COVID learning loss that took place. This administration laser focused on that domestic policy. And last night, in case you missed it, Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, up there in the Commonwealth, not too far from the Garden State and just southeast of Scranton. So those fans of The Office, you might recognize that name. That small town, really the backbone of America, not only with farming, but also with manufacturing, as Pennsylvania will play a crucial role in the upcoming 2026 midterms. And that focus on domestic policy and how tariffs are bringing back billions into the United States. Now, last night there was an election in Miami, and for the first time in nearly 3 decades, Miami, Florida, electing a Democrat. So we'll stay on that news, as we've had several elections here kind of sway back and forth in those off-year municipal elections and those special elections. Now, the count 220 to 213 in the House, a slim majority for Speaker Johnson and Republican leadership, as they are, again, laser focused on the redrawing of these maps. The latest story being that the Crossroads of America in Indiana, having those new maps proposed, passing the House, sitting on that Indiana Senate desk, and ultimately awaiting Governor Mike Braun's signature. Now, not speaking for the governor there, but very likely to put those into place because it will strengthen Republican majorities. We have seen in Texas, the Lone Star State, legally doing that, and SCOTUS upholding their process, and that ultimately drawing out Jasmine Crockett, truly one of the maniacs in Congress. And President Trump touched on the squad last night, including Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, who's involved in this Somalian fraud scandal with SNAP. Mostly this will fall on the backs of Governor Tim Walz ignoring the situation, and Keith Ellison, their attorney general, who has been someone surrounded by care and the far left Islamic radical terrorist leanings that exist in some parts of this country, sadly. And we saw this with illegal Somalian aliens in the area receiving those SNAP fraud benefits. It's really incredible to think about, as President Trump put it just last night, that you have some of these individuals with these leanings, people who marry their brother for legal status, as you saw with Ilhan Omar and all of her antics, are actually serving in the United States House of Representatives because President Trump put it simply, they hate America. Whether it's AOC in New York to the AOC of Tennessee, Afton Bain, who lost to the great veteran Matt Van Epps in the Tennessee 7 special election, all the way down to Texas and Jasmine Crockett, now running for the United States Senate in the Lone Star State. There is that unholy triumvirate of communism to radical Islamic terrorism, to globalism. Let's go there live now to the halls of Congress to catch some of the action in Washington, D.C.
Is broken. Where we're at is unacceptable, and we're going to make sure that we're doing some things that reduce healthcare costs for all Americans, not just the 7% that are affected by the COVID-era subsidies.
So they're still discussing ideas?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, healthcare is unbelievably complicated. It's a sixth or a seventh of the American economy. You're not going to reform it and bring down costs overnight. What we do know is that what the Democrats have been working on has absolutely broken this system, and everyday American families simply cannot afford either healthcare or health insurance.
Do they commit to a vote for next week, leadership?
I don't talk about what happens in conference, but I would tell you that certainly specific details about policy proposals that have been well vetted and are unifying within the Republican conference are moving forward.
Could you give us one or two examples?
I don't. I think that's probably better from the speaker. Not my job to leak out details. But I would tell you that there are some things that are going to materially reduce the cost of health care for all Americans.
Is this like maybe funding CSRs or HSAs?
I'm not going to give you specifics of the plan. Any plan that would be revealed would need to come from the speaker or the appropriate committee chairs. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
yeah.
Mr. Scott, any word on the Senate?
And President Trump has really led the way on showing Republicans how to fight back and how to dive in. And for what it's worth, someone who's been around this for some period of time now, for the last couple of decades, I would recommend that any Republican running, you double down on what matters to the American people. And it's all about the economy, stupid, as James Carville once put it, the Democrat strategist. And he's still echoing that from 1992 and Bill Clinton's campaign. If you can remember those, I don't want to say infamous speeches, but not necessarily fair to Bush 41. When he checked his watch, he was checking the timing of the debate, but it made him look almost disconnected. We can remember read my lips, no new taxes, going into 1992 with an 89% approval rating. Then President George H.W. Bush had received the highest approval rating for a president in American history, and that spiraled throughout that campaign because of domestic policy. And Bill Clinton simply responded with, "I feel your pain." Now, did he really feel the pain, or was he simply one of the most gifted politicians of our time? I'll let you, the viewers, decide that. You can write in at feedback@rsbn.tv. But regardless, that is happening come 2026. And what might mirror a presidential campaign of 1992 with the fact that President Trump calling for a Republican National Convention. And I think that's smart to give people a number of opportunities because, like congressional boundaries and districts, how those are all drawn, it's up to the states, even localities, to make that happen. And their process for delegate selection and alternate delegate selection all varies. And I've had the opportunity on one occasion while I ran back in 2016 in Illinois on the Rand Paul ticket. That's how they did it. You run with the candidate in the primary, but did not cross that threshold to get to the convention, but was an alternate delegate for the Peach State of Georgia, as I covered that great convention with Matthew Alvarez last year here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's an amazing thing to watch when people all come together from the party to break bread and really compare notes. So to have that opportunity every 2 years can build this into an even more robust movement, as President Trump has done just that with a laser focus to make America great again. As the White House releasing just last night, President Trump delivering on those crucial lowering of costs with much more relief on the way. Since taking office, President Trump has made substantial progress reversing inflation and cost of living disasters inherited by the Biden administration. But President Trump is also clear on this. There is still more work ahead of every American so they can feel that relief, whether it be at the pump, at the grocery store, on inflation, on wages, on gas prices, on housing costs. And again, this cabinet laser focused on just that. In fact, Secretary Kennedy, who you'll be seeing moments from now with Secretary Rollins, and Secretary Duffy doing some pull-ups in Washington, D.C.'s Reagan Airport. And I'm afraid to say probably a little bit better than me. I was doing some of those yesterday morning at the gym, but I don't know if I had quite the grace that Secretary Kennedy and Secretary Duffy had, so I need to work on those just a bit. As President Trump taking to Truth Social to cover a number of different items, but that number one, Mr. Producer, he is the hardest worker. There has never been another president who has worked quite like Donald John Trump. My hours are the longest and my results are among the best. I've stopped 8 wars, saving many millions of lives in the process, created the greatest economy in history of our country, brought back business into the United States at levels never seen before, rebuilt our military, created the largest tax cuts and regulation cuts ever, closed our open and very dangerous southern border when previous administrations were unable to do so, and created an aura around the United States of America that has led every country in the world to respect us more than ever before. In addition to all of that, I go out of my way to do long, thorough, and very boring medical examinations at the great Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Now seen and supervised by top doctors, all of whom have given me perfect marks. Some have even said they have never seen such strong results. Now, I do these tests because I owe it to the country. In addition to the medical, I have done something that no other president has done on 3 separate occasions. The last one being recently by taking what is known as a cognitive examination, something which few people would be able to do very well, including those working at the New York Times. And I aced all 3 of them in front of large numbers of doctors and experts, most of whom I do not know. And I have been told that few people have been able to ace this, which is why many other presidents have decided not to take it at all. Despite all of this, the time and work involved, the New York Times and some others like to pretend that I am slowing up, am maybe not as sharp as I once was, or am in poor physical health, knowing that that is not true, and knowing that I work very hard, probably harder than I have ever worked before. I will know when I am slowing up, but it's not now. After all of the work I have done with medical examinations, cognitive exams, and everything else, I actually believe it's seditious, perhaps even treasonous, or that the New York Times and others constantly do fake reports in order to libel and demean the President of the United States. They are true enemies of the people, and we should do something about it. And they have inaccurately reported on all of my election results, and in fact were forced to apologize on much of what they wrote. The best thing that could happen to this country would be if the New York Times would cease publication because they are horrible, biased, untruthful sources, quote unquote, of information. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. And that brings me to somewhat of a side note, but we'll get to that after this MAHA event. Let's go there live now to Secretary Kennedy. Oh, we're going to take a moment, Mr. Producer. Okay, they're not quite ready yet, and that is just all right. Looks like they are in the great state of Texas, home of Brooke Rollins, and amazing work being done there. In fact, Turning Point USA with their America Chapter Fest happening with all of the high schools, an amazing partnership with Governor Greg Abbott down there for freedom of speech. And also, breaking news this week, Governor Greg Abbott really taking it on to the Council of American Islamic Relations, something that has funneled really radical dollars to other Islamic extremists and Islamists out there in the country. Governor Ron DeSantis as well in Florida doing the same to take aim at those who would try to usurp the authority of our American Constitution. And again, there's amazing freedom-loving conservative Muslims out there in America. But there is a fact that you have these Sharia conclaves taking place that are trying to create their own forms and own system of government under the Islamism umbrella. And what does that mean? Islamism believes that everyone needs to bow to Sharia. It's a complete separate kind of governance from what we have in a constitutional republic. And Governor Greg Abbott, Governor Ron DeSantis of the great free Sunshine State of Florida, the Lone Star State, and even our very own Senator Tommy Tuberville, Coach Tuberville, getting tough on this very issue as he seeks to become governor of the Yellowhammer State right here in Alabama. Thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for Tamiflu, antibiotics, ivermectin, and much, much more. In fact, 300 essential medications to protect you during the holiday season. And like us here at the network, like you, the great patriots watching, All Family Pharmacy cherishes this season perhaps more than any other time of year, but recognizes that with fun and family and travel, especially that togetherness taking place just 1 week or even 2 weeks from now with Hanukkah and Christmas right around the corner, that's when the cold and flu season hits and can hit very hard. So get 10% off of your must-have medications for this illustrious holiday season. Use code RSBN10, that's RSBN10, for 10% off your order. Again, 300 essential medications, including emergency medical kits, to Tamiflu and hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue. You could take these on the road with you as well and keep you safe at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. They also do a review by a U.S. licensed doctor. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance. That's okay. Just a pharmaceutical note needed at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Thank you as well to Monetary Gold and Scott Cheney, the senior portfolio manager out of Los Angeles, California. The amazing work his team does on a daily basis. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today at 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate the annual IRA fees permanently for life, or visit rsbnforthegold.com. That's rsbnforthegold.com. With two banks failing this year, with the dollar losing 40% of its purchasing power in the last 2 decades, it behooves you to look into the group that's really leading this in diversification of retirement savings, pensions, everything you worked hard for, whether it's buying a new property or a first property or even creating generational wealth. And if you're a father or a grandfather, maybe a great stocking stuffer for the kiddos out there, Monetary Gold. No two plans fit the same shoe. And that's why this amazing team will work directly with you to eliminate those IRA fees if you do qualify, and also to get you a gold and silver plan as it's a bull market for Monetary Gold, tangible metals that have stood the test of time. rsbnforthegold.com. Thank you as well to Kalshi, where you can trade and bet on all of American questions that are happening over the course of the next couple of weeks. Will the Fed decision happen in December? Will it be cut by 25%? That would be a big number, but more of that 0.25% like we saw recently. Normally it's a 0.5 or a 1 or 2 point cut, but we know with too late Jerome Powell, he's been playing games with the administration and in turn the American people. Will the Fed maintain rate as he looks towards retirement? Will the Georgia Bulldogs be the college football champions? Or perhaps will the Chicago Bears at 9-4, they went from number 1 seed in the NFC down to number 7. It's killing me inside, but that's okay. We have a few more games left. Will they make it to the Super Bowl? All those questions and more at kalshi.com/RSBN. It's the American story. You might as well trade and bet on it and have some fun with answers that will be settled in the near future. As we watch Secretary Kennedy to make a Make America Healthy Again announcement there from what looks like a Texas congressional office. I'm not sure exactly on the location, but we'll get that for you. And Secretary Brooke Rollins could also join Mr. Kennedy in this initiative, as their office is really working closely together with the Department of Ag and also Health and Human Services, especially when it comes to dealing with the pesticides, the poisons that we've seen on our farms and with our ranchers. Farming has been a main focus this week, $12 billion in subsidies and reinvestment going into America's farmers and the great work that they do. And I asked you yesterday, what state has the most farms? And it is the great Lone Star State of Texas, roughly 1.8 million farms throughout that glorious Lone Star State. We love it so much. We love you, America. We are grateful for you tuning in to your go-to live desk this morning. I'm Robert McNeely, and we are waiting for Secretary Kennedy to make a Make America Healthy Again announcement. Also at the top of the hour, House GOP leadership, including Speaker Johnson, to address affordability and getting onto that very controversial healthcare and insurance topic. But Republicans have a plan in the Senate. So do Democrats, but I'm sure they're waiting to see if the spaghetti hits the wall and sticks, because none of their messaging on the far left really has worked this year unless you are slightly insane and keeping your head in the sand. We know that Governor J.B. Pritzker, in fact, released at least 1,700 illegal migrants back into the prairie state of Illinois as of recently, again, violating federal law. But ICE has been working overtime in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and down in New Orleans, Louisiana this week. Stops in Chicago, Memphis, Washington, D.C. becoming much safer as a result of the presence there. And we're grateful to people like Andrew Wolf and his family. He is up and talking responsive after that terrorist attack on him that was led by a CIA-trained radical Islamic terrorist who went rogue, apparently, who was allegedly helping us back during the Afghanistan campaign and the war for Middle East freedom. But what a terrible program there, resulting in what took place, a lunatic driving from Washington State all the way to Washington, D.C., a father, husband of 5, and he would take aim at our great National Guard, preserving the peace. And we very much remember Miss Beckstrom, who passed away as a result of those injuries at 20 years young. Over the holiday season and Thanksgiving specifically, she took the place of people that were married and wanted to spend time with their family, and it was her first week on the job after being sworn in. May that never, ever happen again. As our people in uniform, thank them this holiday season, because they are willing to put their lives down so that we may flourish here in this great country. President Trump also taking to Truth Social to remember the late, great Charlie Kirk in what is his final book about the Sabbath and how important it is, with cut number 2, Mr. Producer, to acknowledge that. Stop in the name of God. 1 month before a monster took Charlie away from us, the great Charlie Kirk finished his final book, Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Transform Your Life. As Charlie often said, if I'm to be known for anything, I want to be known for being courageous in my faith. And Charlie cared deeply about God and country, and in this powerful book, his wisdom, courage, and conviction inspires us all to turn to God for guidance against evil in this world, which we too can overcome. So help us, God. Get your copy today at 45books.com or anywhere books are sold. And I can tell you from knowing Charlie personally, he did believe everyone could be redeemed. He believed that in the gospel, and not only believed it, but followed it on a daily basis. And it's like that great musical Wicked, that song, Because I Knew You, I'm changed for the better. And that's the case in my life, having known the late, great Charlie Kirk. And we remember him this Christmas season with a book that can perhaps change your life as you prepare for the Christmas season. Now, as we await this MAHA announcement, the cliche of affordability being in focus, but the White House showcasing that on a number of different issues that have proved the Trump economy making America strong again. Under Biden, inflation averaged nearly 5% and hit 9.1% amid the worst inflation crisis in decades, fueled by the radical left's obsession with spending. Now, President Trump's second term, inflation has dropped to an average of just 2.7%, the critical first step in reversing Democrats' cost of living disaster. In fact, under President Trump, Americans have seen the first overall price decline since 2020. Now, on the topic of wages, President Trump has made American gains for real wages, and work continues on reversing the damage they suffered under Joe Biden. Now, under the Autopen administration, American workers lost over $2,900 in purchasing power because inflation rose faster than those wages. In President Trump's second term, even after accounting for higher prices, Americans' real wages have grown by nearly 4%, or nearly $700, and are on track to grow by nearly $1,200 after his first full year in office. On gas prices, Americans spending less on gas than they have in a multitude of years. And this is only the beginning. Again, under Biden, gas prices were the highest they had ever seen. Remember the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the socialist, begging then President Biden to reopen that pipeline because it affected not only American jobs, but Canadian jobs. But Nord Stream 2, he approved that, and you had Russian oil and gas pumping into Germany, and then the Germans complaining about the fact that that was happening and controlling their economy, and they were dependent on Russia, and then in turn, Russia invades Ukraine. It's all connected in this global economy of ours, and yet President Trump has to really message 2 or 3 times more than a far-left radical Democrat would because of all of the fake news out there. But President Trump's second term, gas prices have fallen to the lowest average price in 1,682 days. And as my former congressman put it, the proof is in the pudding. Americans are on track for the lowest amount of their disposable income on gas in the last 2 decades. In fact, Colorado seeing gas at $1.69, with even 5 states now at $2.50 or less. That includes right here in the great state of Alabama. Thank you to angelpaste.com for the miracle that is the original vitamin B cream infused with all essentials that are all natural, non-GMO, no chemical. The orange option, fantastic this time of year with the vitamin C properties. It has also a natural facial spray to paint that town red on that date of yours. Or if you're simply getting ready for your campaign announcement in your neck of the woods, angelpaste.com is truly your go-to. They are Christian-owned. They hire veterans. They're based out of Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America. We love them here on the right side of history, and you will love their products as well. I use the Miracle Cream on a daily basis, the original, and talk about a stocking stuffer. You will put someone, give them a smile on their face having this in their stocking this year. Or perhaps Santa will be able to bring that down the chimney for you this Christmas season at angelpaste.com. covepure.com/RSBN. If you want a gift for someone who's very hard to shop for, this is truly the go-to. It's no larger than your coffee machine that I'm sure you have there right on the kitchen counter. And what's also great about this, I like a good cup of tea this time of year, especially with some English friends for some tea and crumpets, perhaps with King Charles III. I don't think I'm in line for that quite yet, but that would be a lot of fun. Well, this holiday season, $250 off of covepure.com/RSBN. And as you saw there in the model, the temperature can immediately go up to that 170 mark or beyond for that hot water immediately for your tea. Instead of waiting and steeping it, then you're late to work. You're late for an appointment as the roads, it's terrible outside. The weather outside is frightful. But the fire and covepure.com/RSBN just so delightful, because the fact is that you have lead in the water system. Remember Flint, Michigan, to fluoride, to pesticides, agricultural runoff. Protect what matters most. That can all lead to brain damage, liver failure, kidney dysfunction, and ultimately gastrointestinal problems. Who needs it this holiday season? Drink pure and live pure with covepure.com/RSBN, and especially protect those little ones in your household. JAMA Pediatrics finding that if they're drinking from the tap on a regular basis, they can lose 2 or more points in their IQ. We don't need that after the COVID learning loss. And ultimately, if you're renting in an apartment, this is the best option because that's all you need right now. The reverse osmosis tube with the Clearwave technology to go into the machine. There's no drilling holes. There's no penalties or fines for bringing the plumber over and trying to figure out something under the sink. What you see is what you get. It is quite the gift this holiday season. $250 off. covepure.com/RSBN, leading in all reverse osmosis systems with their Clearwave technology. At 1 minute after the hour, it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. It's up bright and early, 7 o'clock a.m. on that golden West Coast. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. If you're just tuning in now, I'm Robert McNeely. We're getting ready for Secretary Kennedy to make America Healthy Again announcement, and this is in the Secretary of Agriculture's office. So Brooke Rollins should be joining in as well at the USDA headquarters in Washington, D.C. That's the USDA flag there. Also, the great state of Texas, where she hails from, the Lone Star State. You see that there as well in the office. They have worked overtime this year, and one of the newer highlights we saw was Secretary Duffy in the Ronald Reagan International Airport, DCA, in Washington, D.C., one of my favorites out there. In fact, Reagan runs on Duncan. You might even see that sign there when you're going in and out of the terminal. But Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Duffy, and Secretary Rollins wanting to put in pull-up bars and activity centers, just like you're finding in other areas, whether it's with autism awareness or things for kids when they're out traveling. How about somewhat of a movement center or a workout center so people who are on the go so much can get a couple of reps in? Now, be kind and courteous as well, not only dressing nicer, as the great comedian Sebastian Maniscalco, hailing from Chicago, has mentioned years ago, and Secretary Duffy sharing that about dressing up, maybe not exactly like this with the coat and tie, but just present yourself as if maybe you're going to church or simply not rolling out of bed in pajamas to get onto the airplane. I'd also like to know what you think about this very controversial topic. Feedback at rsbn.tv, feedback at rsbn.tv. And I say controversial because someone decided to raise their voice and yell at me about this very controversial topic. And I was okay with that because I think Secretary Duffy is onto something. So if you do get a few reps in at those airports, make sure there's some deodorant as well, because you don't want to stink someone up next to you as you travel across the country for business and pleasure, especially as we get together for the holiday season with our family and friends. So moments from now, we will take you to this MAHA announcement. Also anticipated today, we have the House GOP leadership to talk on affordability, on healthcare insurance plans, and also we are watching closely as the Senate expected to take up a vote on Republican and Democrat plans in regards to the potential future or lack thereof of what was once called the Affordable Care Act, more like the Unaffordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. And there's a live look now at the press briefing room on Capitol Hill in the United States House of Representatives. This bicameral institution, perhaps more unpopular than it's ever been, but experiencing narrow majorities in the House. Only 2 vacancies exist right now. In January, it will be decided what happens, the fate of Texas 18, losing their member there, Sylvester Turner, the former mayor of Houston, will have a replacement special election taking place there. Also, Mickey Sherrill's district, as she becomes the governor of the Garden State of New Jersey next year. That special election set for the date of April 16th. So we'll watch that closely. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene will be resigning her position from Georgia's 14th congressional district in Rome, Georgia, northwest of the great city of Atlanta. Let's go there live now to USDA.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome for many of you back to the USDA. It's a real pleasure and honor to host you here, and we're just so grateful. Today we have a big announcement, actually a couple of big announcements, but we're really here today to talk about regenerative agriculture. So I'm going to walk everybody through the announcement and the launch today of a really significant program that continues the partnership and this administration's focus on making America healthy again, while also putting our farmers and our ranchers first. So again, we're so grateful. The most excited, not that I'm not excited to see all of you, but we have some amazing farmers in from California and Missouri and Indiana. Who am I forgetting? California, Missouri, Indiana. That's it. Okay, some great. But we're just so grateful to these farmers who are here to be part of this announcement, and really they are pioneers in their field. So again, thanks everybody for being here. Without President Trump's leadership, we would not have achieved the real and concrete successes that we've already seen under our Make America Healthy Again effort. And the waivers, very quickly, just signed 6 more waivers on SNAP on multiple states from across the country and Hawaii, the contiguous states in Hawaii under Governor Josh Green that we signed. So we can answer questions about that too, but we're so excited to continue that work. We all know we're at the point where we must do something to correct the chronic health problems that Americans face. Over 75% of Americans' youth between the ages of 17 and 24, as you know, we've been talking about it, but important to constantly remind, those kids are ineligible for military service because of obesity, poor physical fitness, or mental health challenges. Over 350,000 American children have been diagnosed with diabetes. Since my confirmation as Secretary of Agriculture on the exact same day as Secretary Kennedy's confirmation, February 13th earlier this year, we have been taking bold action on this front. Whether SNAP waivers or applauding voluntary industry commitments or emphasizing local and regional food procurement in our schools or defining ultra-processed foods, all underway, we are prioritizing the health of our country. I am also excited to give an update on our revised farm-to-school grants, which put farmers first and promote healthy choices, healthy families, and healthy outcomes. This year's opportunity streamlined the application process, removed woke DEI requirements, and supports expanding access for small family farms to markets and infrastructure by facilitating connections to the child nutrition marketplace. The farm-to-school application period just closed, and I'm so excited to note that USDA received a record-breaking 645 applications. The record high in the past was 386, so we nearly doubled that. The awards will be announced early in the spring. We continue to actively work with Secretary Kennedy in crafting sensible dietary guidelines for Americans, which are set to be released early next year, so in a couple of weeks. Federal nutrition advice must be sound, simple, and clear. These guidelines will prioritize whole, healthy, and nutritious foods, such as whole-fat dairy, fruits, vegetables, and meats, and suggest limiting highly processed foods and those high in sugar. President Trump and my colleagues, led by Secretary Kennedy on the MAHA Commission, know our current health outcomes, especially for our children, are unsustainable, and that American agriculture and our agencies are at the heart of that solution, and what an honor it is. We're doing things a little bit differently than typical Washington, D.C. Since our confirmation, we have encouraged the states to think differently and creatively as our laboratories of innovation about how to solve the many health issues facing America. So that was a really exciting thing to do. We just finished signing several of those SNAP waivers, and we can take questions on that. Dr. Oz will talk a little bit about that, as Secretary Kennedy will. But really today is about the next step in making America healthy again, in addition to those waivers, and that is talking about regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is a conservation management approach that emphasizes natural resources through improved soil health, water management, and natural vitality for the productivity and prosperity of American agriculture and all of our communities. Today, we are launching a new Farmer First regenerative agriculture pilot program, which will invest $700 million specifically to support regenerative agriculture. We will deliver this support through existing programs our farmers already know and already trust. Protecting and improving the health of our soil is critical, not only for the future viability of farmland, but to the future success of American farmers. In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil. Today's announcement encourages these priorities while supporting farmers to transition to regenerative agriculture if they so choose. This is a Farmers First pilot program and the first of its kind. The pilot brings USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, we have our incredible leaders here, Aubrey Betancourt, back to its core mission, helping people help the land through whole farm, outcome-based voluntary conservation that our producers trust. For too long, our conservation programs have been severely fragmented. This pilot replaces that fragmentation with one unified process that evaluates everything at one time. Whole farm planning is the centerpiece, ensuring that all resource concerns such as soil, water, and natural vitality are addressed together, not one piece at a time. Producers will benefit from a single application, reducing red tape and making conservation easier to access and our programs more impactful. As President Trump has done since day one, we are committed to restoring America's natural strength by empowering producers with simple outcome-based tools. Producers at every stage, from beginners just starting with cover crops to advanced operation with years of conservation experience, many of those are represented by our farmers today, will find a pathway through this pilot. Each producer's results will be measured and credited back to the farmer through an outcomes report, recognizing and rewarding improvements they achieve on their own land. This initiative puts American farmers first as part of the solution to make America healthy again, but by supporting access to American-grown whole foods that are critical to addressing the chronic disease crisis nationwide. Using the Sustains Act, we will bring corporate, label, and supply chain partners directly into partnership with NRCS, supporting regenerative agriculture adoption, farmer recognition, and consumer education. Because success depends on strong partnerships, we will expand work through our technical service providers and local organizations to meet demand. In addition, the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, supported by their advisory committee, will extend regenerative priorities into cities and urban areas and urban communities across our great country, again, aligning with the MAHA agenda. And many of those places in our country, as you know, are those that are facing the most severe crisis regarding nutritious foods and access to nutritious foods. This new pilot is about results that last. It will make our farms more productive, our land healthier, and our water cleaner. Again, we're so grateful to everyone for being here. At this point, I'd like to turn it to my great partner in all of this work, Secretary Bobby Kennedy. Thank you all again for being here, and we will be answering questions.
Thank you very much, Secretary Rollins. This is the fulfillment of a promise that we made in the MAHA report. The MAHA report, which we released 2.5 months ago, has 120 recommendations for how to transition, how to eliminate the chronic disease epidemic and transition to a healthier America. And among those promises, among the recommendations of the report, was the promise to make it easier for farmers in this country, to give them an off-ramp. Farmers who are dependent on inputs, on chemical and fertilizer inputs, to give them an off-ramp where they can transition to a model that emphasizes soil health, and with soil health comes nutrient density. And without coercion, through voluntary action, to give them good incentives to do well by doing good for themselves, for our children, and for the country. I'm very, very happy to have as a partner in this endeavor Brooke Rollins. I've been working on farm issues for 30 years, and this is the first USDA secretary who I believe is really committed to giving us, we already have the healthiest food supply in the world, to making a food supply that's even healthier, that's going to sustain, again, a transition to a much healthier America for our children. I also want to thank these farmers who are inspiring, and they're inspiring to the farm community, to all of us who care about good health, about sustainability on the farm, about water retention, about the soil retention, about the health of farmers themselves who are concerned about the health of their children from too many chemicals on the land. And they have given us models. Some of these are 5th, 6th, 7th generation farmers, and they've provided us models for how to do this and how to do it in a way that vertically integrates, that preserves profit margins, and that dramatically reduces inputs. So I want to thank, again, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of USDA, for making this happen, for her commitment to making America healthy again. And I'm going to introduce my partner and friend, Mehmet Oz.
They are too humble to say it themselves, but Brooke Rollins and Bobby Kennedy are amongst the 2 most innovative secretaries in modern history, and it is your leadership that makes what you're hearing today possible and feasible for people like me who run agencies to actually march forward to accomplish the kinds of goals that they're outlining. Let me give you 2 major examples of how this is playing out right now. The first is the Rural Health Transformation Fund, which, as many of you have been following, received grants from all 50 states, requests for grants for all 50 states. We have just started to get the scores back from grading these applications, which are done by outside experts, and we will allot all that money by the 31st of this month. One of the ways that you get the money is by applying for SNAP waivers. If you apply for a SNAP waiver, and as the 6 documents here that were signed by Secretary Rollins today would attest, there's a lot of interest in this. You get paid extra money. If you actually get your legislator to ratify these agreements, you get additional money. Now, we've also asked states to submit proposals for participating in the Presidential Fitness Challenge, something that Secretary Kennedy's uncle created, and they get points for doing that as well. They also get points, by the way, for opening up credentialing so that rural communities can take advantage of clinicians that might live across the state border, that might be closer to where they happen to be in the little corner edge of their state than from the big city in the middle part of their state. So our intent is to provide better health care across the board, and that Rural Health Transformation Fund is going to put a 50% increase in federal and Medicaid dollars into rural health care over the current standard for the next 5 years in a row. That's, again, 50% more money, $50 billion every year spread out over 5 years. Second big issue is to build demand. As regenerative farming and other tools are coming to the forefront and higher quality foods are quantitated with the plans that Secretary Kennedy is pushing forward with the dietary guidelines, we want to make sure there's a voracious appetite, metaphorically and in reality, for these tasty and nutritious foods. And eating those foods makes you healthier and will save the taxpayers money because Medicare and Medicaid won't have to pay out so much in health care claims. You either pay for it in food or you pay for it in health care expenses. We therefore are pushing both in Medicaid and Medicare for clinicians to talk in their annual wellness visits with with kids if they're pediatricians and with adults if they're primary care providers and general practitioners. And they get points, they get bonuses if they have these conversations teaching about healthy food. But it's even more provocative, I believe, now is we have the ability to incentivize plans like Medicare Advantage plans, which cover 34 million Americans, to provide in the supplemental benefits that they give for chronically ill patients, which is now 34% of all beneficiaries. That's a doubling since last year. But they can't just give any food. They must give food that is nutritiously valuable to these chronic illnesses for the third of Americans who get them, and they have to meet the dietary guidelines, which will be released next year. So it allows us now to enhance the ability of purchasing, the U.S. government's purchasing power and insurance companies' purchasing power to support the changes that are being made by the Secretary of Agriculture. Brooke.
Thank you, Dr. Oz. We've asked one of our farmers, Blake Alexander of California, a former state 4-H and FFA officer and a multi-generational farmer. Blake, it's so great to have you. Just a couple of words from you. Alfalfa hay and dairy farmer, great to have you here. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It's a true honor to be here. And our farm, Alexander Family Farm, was the first certified regenerative farm in the United States. And since that happened, I've kind of carried this load on my shoulders to attempt to help spread the message across the country to conventional farmers, organic farmers alike. And I'm just going to simply say that regenerative farming is simply farming in harmony with nature, with the way that God intended or our Maker intended. It's paying attention to the biology and building nutrient density in the soil, the plants, the crops that our animals eat. For us, it's chickens and cows, and then ultimately it's the milk and the nutrient density for food for humans, and making our planet a better place. In harmony with nature means that we're cleaning up the water supply on our farm. We're cleaning up the erosion that may or may not happen with both soil and water. And we're cleaning up the air, and so everybody benefits. All the wildlife, the ecosystem benefits, and ultimately we're sequestering carbon and literally doing the right thing and moving forward in harmony with nature again, making our planet a healthier place for everyone. We all breathe the same air.
Thank you, Blake. In 1 minute, Aubrey, our chief, anything that I missed on the regenerative piece that if you want to share with anyone as a farmer yourself?
First of all, thank you again for your incredible leadership in moving this forward in a way that puts farmers at the center of this. This pilot is designed by farmers for farmers to incorporate that feedback from farmers, because farming in California and farming in Indiana are two different things, but this program is designed to utilize the NRCS suites of practices that our farmers know and trust, and allows them that flexibility to as the Secretary talked about, I'm going to say on-ramp into regenerative practices and incorporate that in a measurable way. And more importantly, and I think, Secretary, you covered it so well, it connects the producer and the work that they're doing on the farm, granting them the credit for that voluntary action of change of practice on their farm that then can transition into the supply chain, into the marketplace, and directly back to the consumer. This country is 6 generations separate from the land. And this is an opportunity for us to bridge that gap together, and again, by looking at this holistically from on-farm planning all the way through the supply chain to the consumer. And so we're looking forward to rolling out this program in a way that farmers know, can trust, working with the NRCS offices and staff across the country in almost every county of the country to provide that technical and financial assistance to them, and again, ensure that they are credited back and seen as the solution and not the problem. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And our great Undersecretary Richard Fordyce has joined us as well. All right, we'll take any questions.
First up is Mike Pearson.
Mike Pearson.
Please state your name and outline.
Farm Progress.
Farm Progress.
There you are.
Secretary Rollins, can you tell us what kind of criteria the NRCS will be using to assess these regenerative pilot projects?
Yes, I'll let Aubrey answer all the specifics. She's been a warrior on this and working on it for months and months.
The criteria is the same as it has and always been. It's EQIP and CSP. These are our standing programs that take year-round applications. There's actually there's nothing new. It'll be the same application that our farmers know already. The difference is they'll be able to apply for multiple practice on a single application. What's important about that is it ties back to that whole farm plan. The idea being that we're going to look at all of the resource concerns on the property at one time instead of drive-by conservation, where we're only looking at maybe soil health here and maybe in a few years we're going to look at water management. No, it's going to come back to a plan. Let's start working the plan with the farmer. This means we've got to put our NRCS staff back out in the field where the farmer, where they belong, and we're making incredible efforts and investment in that as well. The Secretary has been a tremendous champion of that. But this is the same EQIP and CSP rolling contracts as we have all throughout the year.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Mark Keller at EAD News.
Yes.
Madam Secretary, I think I heard you mention urban agriculture and also technical assistance. Maybe you could expand a little bit on that. I don't think those are two things that the Office of Management and Budget really loves, but will the budget request protect them?
I'll let Aubrey kind of speak a little bit to that, but clearly the urban part of this is important to this administration, understanding how we're realigning to ensure that the priorities and that we're focusing on what's important. But there is no doubt that those who are most affected by a inability to have access to nutritious foods, The dietary guidelines, let me say this, and then Aubrey, I'll let you answer the specifics. The dietary guidelines, this whole effort on making America healthy again, working on the SNAP, I'm thinking we now have 18 states, we've signed waivers, more coming by the day, the innovation that's happening. This is for all of America, but those that it will affect and benefit the most are those who are living in vulnerable communities in urban areas around this country and in vulnerable communities in the rural America as well. So making sure that we are building a system and an infrastructure that supports that as we're moving forward. USDA spends $400 million a day on 16 nutrition programs just across USDA, $400 million a day. You marry that to the new dietary guidelines, you marry that to these new programs, and all of government approach with a vision to make America healthy again, and certainly a focus in our urban areas is really important.
Addressing the urban ag and innovative production component of that, we still have another year statutorily to operate that committee, and so we're utilizing it towards the president's priorities and the secretary's priorities as well. It has a huge and important part to that connection back to the consumer and the supply chain, and we're also very worried about, concerned about regional food systems, both inside of urban, but even a broader piece of that. I think another component to that, which we're looking to integrate, is actually a tribal approach as well through our tribal conservation districts and many of our tribal communities, and their food sovereignty is something that we're looking to integrate there. So we're marrying up existing statutory authority with our priorities and agenda. From a technical assistance perspective, this is the foundation of NRCS. 90 years ago, this country decided it was a priority that we keep farmers on the landscape farming to the best and highest ability that they can. Technical assistance is foundational to NRCS. It's something we are never going to stop doing, and we will always have a way to provide that.
Great answer. Yes, in the back, and then we'll come over here.
Thanks so much for taking your questions. Marsha Brown with Politico. 2 quick questions. Can you clarify where the $700 million is coming from for the equipment CSP? And then the second question I have is, you mentioned some corporate partnerships. How does that differ from the partnerships for climate smart commodities that the administration ended earlier this year? And could you talk a little bit more about those?
Yeah, you should do that too.
For the first part of that question, with regards to the financing, this is standard EQIP and CSP. It's baseline funding that we received through our budget. So we have the ability to tag that funding specifically for this pilot, and that's what we're doing. I believe it's $400 million for EQIP and $300 million for CSP. As for the corporate partnership, this is facilitated through the Sustains Act that was passed by Congress. It was granted to NRCS in order to allow us to look at the suite of standing programs from NRCS and engage with corporate partners to do matching dollars to priorities set by the Secretary. And so we are piloting that with EQIP and CSP specifically around regenerative agricultural practices because of the pull from the marketplace to integrate these into the supply chain and production. So we're really looking forward to being able to have those measurable results that the farmer has, that those companies can look to and match and leverage against our taxpayer dollars. I mean, this is a way of this is a new and innovative way of implementing conservation across the landscape and putting farmers first, not just from our perspective, but from the entire cultural perspective of the country.
Excellent. Yes, in the blue. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, for Secretary Kennedy. I'm Hassan Ahmed with AFD. You mentioned regenerative agriculture as an off-ramp from pesticide-based farming, which has obviously been an issue of great concern for MAHA supporters. Do you see the recent approvals of pesticides and PFAS chemicals as potentially threatening the sort of key pillar of support that has been there for President Trump in terms of your MAHA movement?
I don't think so, and we're in discussions with Lee Zeldin at EPA, and we're very, very confident of his commitment to make sure to reduce toxic exposures to the American people.
All right, everybody, thank you again for being here today. Let me just clarify quickly, because I didn't list the states that we signed 30 minutes ago. My fault. Hawaii, Missouri, North Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. That'll obviously be in the press release. I know anyone trying to write that down. And we've already signed an additional other 12, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, Utah, Louisiana, Florida, Colorado, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Texas, both red and blue states. We're really proud of that. This team is an unprecedented example of how across our government the collaboration is historical. and working together. We're constantly in contact. We do a weekly call. This announcement today on regenerative agriculture, combined to more SNAP waivers, we'll have monthly events and announcements as we're moving toward, again, making America healthy again, getting nutritious foods to all Americans, and putting our farmers and ranchers first in all of that effort. So God bless you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
And you have been watching RSBN's Live Desk with the United States Department of Agriculture and Secretary Brooke Rollins, Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at the Department of Health and Human Services, of course, Dr. Oz as well, and these intergovernmental agencies and a cabinet working overtime for regenerative and sustainable farming and ranching services in order to bring healthy foods to all Americans and prices that should be affordable ultimately for good, natural, organic, wholesome foods. Without the pesticides, without the fake meats that are out there. In fact, many states banning, including right here in Alabama, the growing of fake meats that you might have researched online. It's amazing to think that the things that we have dealt with as a nation over the course of the last couple of decades. But federalism being in the front and center for this administration and working in a collaborative manner with state governments to make America healthy again. The House GOP leadership is holding a press conference. We'll bring you to that momentarily. In the meantime, thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, focused on making America healthy again. There's no question about that. As they cherish this time of year, just like we do here at the network, it's a lot of togetherness, family, friends, football fun, and ultimately the reason for the season, our Lord and Savior's birth on that Christmas morning. 10% off now. Your must-have medications this season, because you don't want the sniffles, the scratches, the fevers that can sadly accompany this time of year in the busyness and the rush towards the holidays. Tamiflu, antibiotics, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, and methylene blue, much, much, much more. 300 plus essential medications, all reviewed by a licensed U.S. doctor there for you. Great patriots at All Family Pharmacy. They believe in the right to try. Most favored nation status that this government has worked so hard to implement. Also, they want you to have that access to off-label generics that are affordable, once ordered, brought to your door in the matter of days. Again, with code RSBN10, RSBN10, 10% off now with that code. Scan the QR code there now and make your holidays healthy again and be prepared. In fact, not only having this in your medicine cabinet, good to have on hand so you don't have to rush over to the urgent care. And the one next to me, it's literally through the door right now, the line every single day. You can take these on the road with you if you're traveling for the holiday season. Allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, code RSBN10 for 10% off now. Monetary gold for wealth preservation and securities as you look towards 2026. How are you to diversify with central banks buying up gold and silver? There's a reason they're doing that. Get your complimentary presidential gold guide today, 888-617-7994. Scott Cheney is happy to help with his Los Angeles office and the entire company. They're an amazing group of people. You've seen him here on the network as the senior portfolio manager, working on digital assets and tangible metals that will work overtime for you when paper money fails you, when your bank fails, when all of this inflation that has hit us in the last Otto Penn administration still affecting us today. Gold and silver really are hot commodities. RSBN4thegold.com, that's the place to visit. And like President Trump said in 2016, what do you have to lose? Grab that presidential gold guide and look at your options. No two plans fit the same shoe. So you might as well explore how to buy that new next property or that first property, or simply create generational wealth for your family. A great stocking stuffer as well for all the parents and grandparents out there. Monetary Gold, RSBN4thegold.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And protect yourself online. There's been a record number of spam calls this year, But Venice.ai/RSBN can help stop all of that with 20% off code RSBN. Protect what you say over the phone. Protect what you text and email, especially as we've seen a number of leaks in private and public life over the course of the last decade. At the Apple Store, at Google Play, it's 20% off with code RSBN, Venice.ai/RSBN. As you can see here, our newest and most exciting sponsorship in regards to online security, because AI has its challenges. It can be scary. We even know that the person behind Grok 4, Elon Musk, stating that this is quite frightening that they communicate and create their own language together. But what are some of the benefits and opportunities, as Vice President Vance speaking on this earlier this year in France on the AI conference? How can we lead? How can America lead into the new horizon? It's great applications like Venice.ai/RSBN that's protecting your privacy. And again, what matters most to you, and simply private conversations. It should be for you, for your business partners, for your personal relationships. 20% off now with code RSBN. Visit Venice.ai/RSBN at the App Store and on Google Play. Again, 20% off now. Another great gift and stocking stuffer in the AI division right here during the holiday season, as we gear up for a House GOP leadership conference to be held moments from now. And we can actually toss that over from the live desk and bring you to Speaker Johnson and company on Capitol Hill.
I didn't bring my box today. That's terrible. Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend. Let me be clear and start off with saying that Democrats didn't just cause inflation. They lit the match, they watched it burn, and then they poured gasoline on the flames. They buried families under regulations, spent trillions on pet projects, and railed against American paychecks to appease who? Their radical base. And Americans will never forget who did that, because we will continue to remind them. During 4 long years of Biden inflation, hardworking families actually did the right thing. They tightened their belts, they canceled vacations, they put groceries back on the conveyor belt, and they drained their savings just to keep the lights on. Because Bidenomics sent energy costs skyrocketing. Under Bidenomics, and in those 4 years, let me just paint the picture for everybody. Home heating oil shot up 44%. Gasoline climbed 48%. Electricity costs went through the roof, rising 29%. And abundant American natural gas rose 27%. Those were under the 4 years during President Biden. That economic punishment crushed the American dream for millions of Americans. But there's actually good news. Thanks to President Trump and Republicans in Congress, the comeback is underway, and America loves a good comeback story. Now, it won't happen overnight. You don't rebuild a burned down home in one day. And after 4 years of economic arson, there's a lot to clean up. But House Republicans are here with the fire extinguisher. We are rebuilding the economy that working families can afford, and so that working families can thrive again. This week, we're laser focused on passing legislation that actually lowers costs. And guess what? It's already working. Gas prices are at a 4-year low. Grocery prices are finally coming down, and wages are actually rising. And next year, Americans will see bigger paychecks because of the Working Families Tax Cut Acts. Remember, the Democrats voted and they wanted to give every single American a pay raise. Every single American, the Democrats voted to raise your taxes. Thank God Republicans voted to not let that happen. Last week, we cut red tape and peeled back Biden's burdensome regulations, and we're doing it again this week. This is all part of an agenda to lower costs and increase paychecks for hardworking families. Real reforms to roll back Washington's overreach and put the power back where it belongs, with the workers, with the families, and with actually the job creators. Government in Washington doesn't need more power. We actually believe that the power lies with the people, unlike the Democrats who want to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. The Democrats believe they are a better steward of your money than you are. We don't believe that. That's why we're putting the power back in your hands. And what are Democrats doing? Again, you think they're going to vote to lower costs? I don't think so. I think the Democrats will vote against giving you bigger paychecks. I think the Democrats will vote against relief for American families. They're fanning the flames of the crisis that they ignited, right? So we will continue our work without them. And watch how they vote, right? We will continue our work without them, because asking Democrats to fix inflation is like asking an arsonist to join the fire department. This week, we'll vote to lower electricity prices, secure supply chains, and modernize permitting to make energy more affordable again. Because House Republicans are cleaning up Bidenomics, ending Biden inflation, and restoring an America that is strong and respected again. We are restoring an America that is affordable and prosperous again for every single hardworking family. And another piece of important legislation that will be on the floor this week is the NDAA. And I don't think there's anyone better here to talk about it than a Representative Kiggins. So right now, I yield to Representative Kiggins.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, and I proudly represent Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. I'm also a Navy veteran, former helicopter pilot, a Navy spouse, and now a proud Navy mom. So it's certainly a privilege to be here today to talk about this year's National Defense Authorization Act, which should see a vote on the floor today. This is over $900 billion of money that we can send to our warfighters and to our military families. There's a large chunk of that's dedicated to ships, submarines, aircraft, the actual warfighting resources and tools that we need to just exemplify peace through strength throughout the world. That part can't be overstated. We've done so much with this administration just to reprioritize peace through strength. That's how we keep peace in the world, is by being that deterrent, by being that strong fighting force, but also taking care of our military families and our men and women in uniform. We did so much good work last Congress with the Quality of Life Task Force, and we continued that work into this year's NDAA. We looked at pay raises. We gave a 3.8% pay raise to our servicemen and women. We looked at housing. We put $1.5 billion back into housing infrastructure improvements. We know that there's a lot of room for improvement there, and I'm thankful that the Secretary of War has prioritized a task force to specifically look at where we are housing our men and women. We looked at child care. We have money specifically dedicated to new child care facilities. We looked at DoD education. We've pressing on DODEA to look at things like no cell phones in schools that are on military installations. There's a lot of money in there for health care that we want to make sure we're providing good health care for our men and women who serve and their families. We put other things in there for licensures to make it easy for providers to be able to serve our military community. And we even looked at things that were making it unifying the accession process, because we heard a lot of challenges with young people who want to serve, that they're being looked at differently for different types of medical history issues. So we changed those things. A lot of meaningful change. One of the things I'm most excited about is how we've prioritized our military Sea Lift Command. In the Navy, you know, we don't have as many ships as we probably should, and we're working on that shipbuilding exercise. But in the meantime, I have my military Sea Lift Command folks who are stepping up, who are civilian partners in providing that peace through strength on the seas. And what we left them out a little bit of the discussion with the quality of life issues. So we included them back this time. We took out pay caps for military Sea Lift Command pay. We made sure that our military Sea Lift Command members could shop at the commissaries and exchanges. We're protecting our commissaries, making sure that they are available and there for our military families. So So a lot of good things to take care of the people who serve, but then also that technology integration piece, the contract awarding, the procurement acquisition reform. We've done many, many good things to the tune of over $900 billion. So it's a privilege to have been a part of the team that put that together. It's a mission that we all share here in Congress on both sides of the aisle of taking care of our military and making sure we remain the greatest in the world. Thank you so much. And with that.
Thank you, Jen. Fraud, fraud, and more fraud. It seems like every day there is a new discovery of stolen taxpayer dollars in my home state of Minnesota. And who is smack dab in the middle of it? The self-acknowledged liar, incompetent, failed governor, and failed vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. But with the world now watching, Walz can no longer hide from accountability. I want to thank President Trump and his all-star administration for pursuing justice for the hardworking taxpayers of my state of Minnesota. Secretary Noem, Secretary Bessent, Secretary Duffy, FBI Director Patel, Administrator Loeffler, Dr. Oz, Stephen Miller, Border Czar Tom Homan, and even more in the Trump administration have sounded the alarm and taken action finally. On behalf of the people of Minnesota, thank you. In addition to exposing and eliminating rampant waste, fraud, and abuse, President Trump and House Republicans are delivering on our promise to restore affordability and opportunity for the American people. With legislation to streamline permitting, unleash American energy, and increase opportunities for Americans to invest in their futures, we're working to lower costs, support American jobs, and spur business innovation. In particular, the nonpartisan INVEST Act, led by Congresswoman Ann Wagner, is going to cut bureaucratic red tape. It's going to empower small businesses in this country and entrepreneurs and give Americans more freedom to invest, build wealth, and save for the future. This will be another great week for America First Wins. And with that, I yield to our leader.
Thank you, Whip, and really appreciate the work that the Whip has done to remind everybody about the fraud that was going on in Minnesota for years. It's finally getting, I think, more coverage, not as much as it deserves, but alarming that so much of that was going on right under the nose of Governor Walz and the brutal waste of taxpayer dollars. We're going to continue, as President Trump is this week, to focus on affordability and lowering costs. You saw President Trump go to Pennsylvania yesterday to talk about a number of the things he's been working on in his administration and working with Congress to lower costs for families. But it's important to remind people what he inherited and what was going on in this country under the Biden administration for 4 years, when you saw prices skyrocketing, energy costs skyrocketing, interest rates skyrocketing, and Democrats in Congress never cared about any of that. They let it happen. They looked the other way over and over again. An open, porous southern border that President Trump not only said he would fix as a candidate, but now has fixed as president of the United States. And when he talks about the things that he's doing to lower inflation, we're finally seeing some relief, but we're going to continue working to lower costs for families. And it's something that is not only important to President Trump, it's important to this House majority. You know, we talked a lot about health care in these last few weeks here at this podium, but our committees have been working on very serious proposals, all focused on lowering costs for 100% of American families. While Democrats talk about less than 10% of the American people, we have been talking about what we can do to lower health premiums for 100% of American families, while also giving options to people who are trapped in unaffordable Care Act plans. Where Democrats want to keep them trapped, we want to give them options. And so we've been working and meeting with different caucuses within our conference for weeks. The committee chairs have been talking about the very specific bills. We've been meeting and getting ideas from a lot of our members who have great, passionate ideas on health care. The Doctors Caucus, doctors who practiced medicine in the private sector and then they came to Congress They still have great ideas about how to restore the doctor-patient relationship that Obamacare broke. So many things about health care that the Affordable Care Act just destroyed, starting with the title of the bill. Nothing is affordable about the Affordable Care Act, and Republicans want to fix that. And so what we did today in our conference just a little while ago is had a really productive discussion about all those ideas that the committees have been working on, not just ideas, actual bills. And we are now focused on bringing a number of those bills to the floor next week that we have consensus on. There are still some areas that we don't have full agreement upon, and we're going to keep working on those. And we've committed to work on those early in the next year, but starting next week, voting in the House on bills that will focus on lowering premiums for 100% of Americans. Let's see where Democrats stand when it's not just giving money to insurance companies and propping up failed Obamacare plans, but actually helping 100% of Americans have better choices and lower health care premiums. So we're going to continue bringing bills to the floor that work on fixing problems that Democrats have created and delivering on the promises we made to the American people. And our champion, who is our lead person who is helping unify this very narrow Republican majority, but very effective Republican majority, is our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Good morning. Our majority is narrow, but we were happy to add a new member this past week, and we've administered the oath now to Representative Matt Van Epps of Tennessee. You're really going to love him. He's a combat veteran and a dedicated husband and father, a very effective state official from Tennessee, and now he will be representing the folks of Nashville and 14 counties here, and we've added him to his committees this morning formally and officially, so he is hit the ground running. There is a lot going on here. We wanted to talk with you about some of those things this morning, and I'm so grateful for this leadership team for giving you the report so far, and for Representative Kiggins, who is an extraordinary member of Congress, as you know, a decorated veteran and somebody who's so committed to our nation's defense and our military servicemen and women, and her expertise and all these things has been so greatly appreciated. We're glad to have her this morning. Now, look, we've had one of the most consequential, most productive, most successful Congresses in the history of this institution, the 119th Congress. In spite of those small margins, the Republican majority has been working in lockstep with the Republican majority in the Senate, even though that one's small as well, and of course with our strong Republican president and his administration. And the results of that cannot be questioned. And I see this false narrative right now, oh, they haven't done enough. Oh, pray tell. Listen, the Working Families Tax Cut, the big, beautiful bill, took about 6 months of the first part of this Congress to put together because it was so consequential and so comprehensive. And there are so many things in that bill that our members are going to be so excited to go and run on and talk about in the upcoming election cycle, because we inherited an absolute disaster from the Biden administration. Virtually every area of public policy was decimated, and we had to rebuild from the ground up in many of these places and make all sorts of changes and reforms to get America back again. And we did, and we put it all in this one landmark piece of legislation that will have consequences for generations, and it will be seen and written by history to be one of the biggest things that the Congress has ever achieved. And among those things was an approach to beginning this affordability agenda, because remember, we inherited massive inflation from the previous administration. It's no secret affordability is a flashpoint, right, in recent weeks, and we had 4 catastrophic years of Bidenomics that we inherited. The Biden administration spent like drunken sailors, and they attempted to tax and regulate their way to prosperity, and we all knew when they were doing it that it would not work. It had exactly the opposite effect. The result was inflation skyrocketed, gas prices reached record highs, homeownership declined, credit card debt increased, all those things that everybody felt and they're still feeling now. Now, the American people gave us a mandate in the election. The president won the Electoral College soundly. He won a big majority popular vote. We got the highest vote total for House Republicans in the history of this institution, and they charged us to go fix this. We began that process with the big, beautiful bill, and we have never let up on the accelerator. We keep it going day by day, week by week, notching away at this, trying to fix everything that the previous team broke. And now I wish we could flip a switch right after the election and make it all go away, make it all right. But you know that's not how the economy works. It takes some time to implement new policies and root out the bad things, and that's what's happening. It is a fact that the Biden administration and their Democrat enablers in Congress, we cannot forget, wrecked the U.S. economy. That's what happened, and we had to take it over in January. This is why Democrats' newfound claims about affordability are just patently absurd. Okay, here are the facts, and you know this. Many of you don't write about it, but these are the facts, and they're undisputed. They broke the economy, and now they want to lecture to the American people about affordability. They opened our borders, and now they want to lecture to the American people about immigration border enforcement. They broke the American health care system. They caused premiums to skyrocket. And now they have the audacity to tell Republicans that the only way to save it is to throw hundreds of billions of dollars to health insurance companies, which would merely fuel a system that is rife with fraud, waste, and abuse. You cannot be an arsonist and a firefighter at the same time. That's the message for the Democrats. Let's be very clear about one thing. When the Democrats talk about health care affordability, okay, this catchphrase that they are talking about one thing and one thing only. They are talking about continuing handouts to big insurance companies. They have no ideas, they have no desire to fix the broken system they created. They just want to subsidize it. And subsidy is a big word. It means they're taking taxpayer dollars and funding a broken system. That is their entire affordability agenda in a nutshell. This agenda does not lower health care costs. All it does is hide the cost of the failed law, which we assume is the point. And their proposal, which is a 3-year extension of these enhanced subsidies, the Democrat COVID subsidies that they created, that they put the expiration date on for this December, that proposal to extend that for 3 years is devoid of any reforms to clamp down on the rampant waste, fraud, and abuse, and it continues to provide taxpayer-subsidized health care to Americans who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars in annual salary. It doesn't make any sense. Now, you heard Whip Emmer and Leader Scalise reference the massive fraud that's just been uncovered in the last week or so in Minnesota. We know that this has been going on around the country in these deep blue states, and now the evidence is starting to come forward. It's staggering. It should upset. It should anger every American that this is where their dollars are being wasted and abused. A new report by the Government Accountability Office, which I haven't seen too much written about yet, you should look into that. It is an eye-opener as well. It makes clear why it would be a dereliction of duty to just extend subsidies without massive reforms to them, okay? Over the last 2 years, this is investigators at the Government Accountability Office, okay? They submitted 24 fraudulent applications for the ACA subsidies, the Unaffordable Care Act subsidies, Obamacare, okay? Of the 24 fraudulent applications that they created intentionally to just see what would happen, 23 of them were approved. These applications were completely fraudulent. The investigators did not submit any Social Security numbers, citizenship documentation, or reported income documents. And 23 of the 24 applications were still approved. 18 of those, by the way, are still receiving coverages they were as of September of this year. That means the Obamacare exchange and insurers didn't verify any of the information that they were supposed to under the law, and they proceeded to pay tens of thousands of dollars to insurance companies for people who do not exist, okay? The GAO report also found that 29,000 Social Security numbers in 2023 and 68,000 in 2024 were used to receive more than 1 year's worth of insurance coverage. In other words, multiple people were utilizing the same Social Security numbers to openly defraud the American taxpayers. The GAO also found that more than $94 million was sent to insurers on behalf of dead people, okay? This is the system that Democrats in Congress want to extend without reform. It's unbelievable. Listen, these are undisputed facts. The Democrats broke America's health care system when they gave us the Unaffordable Care Act, Obamacare, 15 years ago. Remember all the promises? Some of y'all were here. The average premium and the average family is going to go down to $2,500 a year. You're going to be able to keep your doctor. You're going to love this system. None of that was true. In fact, it's the opposite. And premiums have risen because they broke the system dramatically over that time. In some areas, as much as 70%, in some over 90%. And those things are still on a trajectory to rise further. Now, what are we going to do about that? The Democrats had a chance to vote to make life more affordable earlier this year in the Working Families Tax Cut, the big, beautiful bill, and they blew it. The House version of the bill, you may remember, included cost-sharing reductions. We passed that out of the House. We sent it to the Senate. And what that would have done is it would have lowered premiums for the average American family by over 12%. Democrats fought to strip that out of the bill. Every American watching today should remember that. The Democrats had a chance to actually lower your premium 6 months ago, but they refused because they wanted to keep health care as a political football. They do not want a solution. They want an issue. That's what this is about. They used the American taxpayers, they admitted themselves during the longest shutdown in U.S. history a few weeks back, as leverage in this cynical political game. So in the coming days, what you're going to see is the other party, the Republican Party, continuing to do the important work that we've already begun to actually lower the cost of health care and reduce fraud, and we hope Democrats will join us in those efforts. There are two parties in this town. One has no intention and no plan and no desire to lower your health care costs. They really haven't put any good idea on the table. They just want to subsidize a broken system. Check them on that. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is already demonstrating that we know how to do this. We're not just talking about it, we've done it. In the Working Families Tax Cut, you will remember, in the Medicaid reforms, we went after program integrity. We didn't change the substance of Medicaid, as they've claimed falsely. We went to program integrity. Why? Because we owed that to the American taxpayers. We got ineligible recipients off of Medicaid, and we cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse. And the CBO said they've calculated it saved $185 billion for American taxpayers, and it reduced premiums. We reformed it to strengthen Medicaid. Those same principles are going to guide us in the months, in the days and weeks and months forward. As Leader Scalise noted, we have some low-hanging fruit. We have some things that every Republican agrees to. Democrats won't. Remember, they don't actually want to fix this problem. But you're going to see a package come together that will be on the floor next week that will actually reduce premiums for 100% of Americans who are on health insurance, not just the 7%. Remember, the COVID-era subsidy only covers 7% of Americans, and it was passed and extended without any reforms at all. It would only reduce their premiums by 4%. So they're using that as a red herring. The overall system is broken, and we're the ones that are going to fix it. You will see that laid out. Thanks to the good work of Chairman Cole and all of our appropriators, we have our appropriations process that will be going forward as well. We're moving those through the regular order process, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So you'll see many of those going through the process, and we think we can get it all wrapped up by the end of that deadline on January 30th. And you'll see that process continue over the days and weeks ahead as well. I will say this again. This Congress has been the most productive and successful in the modern era, and I think I think you can make an argument, one of the top 5 of all time. You'll have heard me say that. Look at the evidence and the facts. Don't listen to the talking points. This team has delivered with small margins what the American people asked us to do and what we promised we would do. And that work has just begun. It will continue in earnest all the way through the end of this year as we sprint through the end of this calendar year and we start the new session in January. We never let take our foot off the gas. So with that, I'll take a few questions. Yeah.
Do you intend to advance pro-life provisions in your health care package, such as amendments for whatever you advance?
Well, look, it's an important principle the Republicans always stand by, the Hyde provisions. It's been a tradition in our law forever. We do believe in the sanctity of human life, and we think it's important that taxpayer dollars not fund abortion. I mean, this is a well-settled principle of ours. So this week, as we go forward, we're gonna do a lot of things on the floor, and we always keep our fundamental principles in mind. Let me tell you just some of these things this week. I mean, some of this has been mentioned, but real substantive things coming to the floor. We passed legislation last week to keep the CCP out of your children's classrooms and to cut costly red tape for small businesses. This week, you're going to have the NDAA on the floor, as Representative Kiggins has talked about, building on historic investments that we included in the Working Families Tax Cut to advance President Trump's Peace Through Strength agenda. By the way, I want to just tell you, before somebody's going to ask about these provisions, this legislation, the NDAA, codifies 15 of President Trump's executive orders, as the leader mentioned, provides a well-deserved pay raise for our troops. It advances the Golden Dome. It revitalizes our defense industrial base. It ends woke ideology at the Pentagon, and it keeps the border secure. And it's the product of months of work by Chairman Rogers and our House Armed Services Committee with Representative Kiggins and all the colleagues there. We thank them for their efforts. And this week, we're also going to have legislation to streamline permitting processes, accelerate permitting approvals, as Chairwoman McClain discussed, strengthen our electric supply chain, and many other things. What you're not going to see, though, is the dreaded Christmas omnibus, right? Because we broke that fever, and I'm so proud of that. For 3 consecutive years, Republicans have avoided the bloated end-of-the-year Christmas omnibus. We've broken that tradition, and we're not turning back. Those are the things you're going to see as we advance our core principles and we stick to the traditions of what we've done for the taxpayers and for the citizens of this country. Yes. Second row, right here. Classic.
After the Gang of 8 briefing that you had yesterday, what makes this video of a second strike on a suspected drug vote different from the other videos the administration has voluntarily released? And do you support all members of your conference being able to see it?
My admission here is I was not in the Gang of 8 briefing yesterday because we were working on the healthcare stuff, and it was timed at exactly the same time as we had our 5 families, all of our caucus meetings, and I told Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio I wouldn't make it, so they're going to meet with me individually, so I have not yet seen that. But I will tell you that they have obviously shown that video to the Gang of 8, and I think members of the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee. So you have to ask the question to them. So we'll see. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Second row. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Can I get your thoughts on Jasmine Crockett's run for Senate? What does it say about the state of the Democratic Party? And do you feel worried about their chances of winning at all?
I'm absolutely delighted that Jasmine Crockett is running for Senate in Texas. I think it's one of the greatest things that's happened to the Republican Party in a long, long time. She is the face of the Democratic Party. She and Mamdani. Good luck with that. I want her to have the largest, loudest microphone that she can every single day, and we look forward to having that election down there. We are going to elect another Republican senator in Texas. Texas is a red state. The people of Texas are common sense Americans, and what Jasmine is trying to sell will not be purchased by the folks of Texas. That is my prediction. Yes. Thank you. Thanks so much.
And thank you for the update, Speaker Johnson and House Republican leadership. Wide range of topics that the Congress is focused on as we enter into the holiday season, including what might be in store regarding health care and insurance policies. Would it not be nice? I was talking to Mr. Producer about this. Just go to Costco or Sam's Club and be able to purchase a 2 or 3 year plan for around $5 to $10K or something varying of that crosses state lines, that does not necessarily rely on your employer or even the government with those various COBRA or even Obamacare subsidies. Would that not be nice? So we will see what happens on that forefront. I remember Senator Ted Cruz in the 2016 campaign really leading the way on healthcare reform, and that becoming a highlight for potential Republican issues as we go into the midterm elections. Thank you very much to our dear friends over at mypillow.com/RSBN. Mr. Mike Lindell leading the way on this Christmas celebration. Save up to 80% this holiday season, a big 8-0. And stay tuned for tomorrow. There might be a special announcement in the great state of Minnesota, where he manufactures and produces American-made, high-quality My Pillows, the 1.0, the 2.0, the My Slippers, the My Coffee, those blankets and sheets, and the amazing promos. The master marketer, as President Trump puts it, it's Mike Lindell leading this team in Minnesota. mypillow.com/RSBN. Support Mike Lindell. Support the right side of history with promo code RSBN. Very easy to remember there. mypillow.com/RSBN for stocking stuffers. Over 2,000 items there for your Christmas and holiday celebrations. Thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN. The College Football Championship, very controversial this week, with many voices from Brady Quinn to Coach Nick Saban and commentators across the SEC to the Big Ten and all of conference play in ACC and Big 12 action, to those who make these decisions. Who will win? on January 19th? Is it the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Indiana Hoosiers with an amazing season, their first outright Big Ten championship year in football since 1945? Will the Georgia Bulldogs bark their way into the big dance once again? Will Jensen Wang be Time's Man of the Year for 2025? And how many Americans will be traveling this holiday season? Just some of the questions that are at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code now. Trade on everything here in the American ethos. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. As we look to inside and outside of the Beltway, feel free to donate here as part of your Christmas giving, the season of giving. We'd be most appreciative here at the network. Support us at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate, or text RSBN to 801-801. And you can also send a check or money order into 1550. That's 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, the loveliest village on the plains. It's Auburn, Alabama, 36830, as the students really finish up their finals this week and head home for Christmas. We do appreciate, again, your dollars to support the new media, to bring you this unbridled access to your 45th and 47th President of the United States, your 50th Vice President, the 119th Congress, as we gear up, like we saw last night, really a kickoff in so many ways to the 2026 midterms. It's going to feel like a presidential campaign, and we're all here for it to bring you that access as you're getting images there from last year's historic 2024 presidential election. rsbnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. Thank you so much for your support on the right side of history. Let's take a quick commercial break for all sponsorships, and then we'll come right back to you for commentary here on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Every once in a while, something big happens, something that changes everything. And now, in a defining moment for crypto, Trump Media Group and Crypto.com are joining forces to acquire up to $6.4 billion of CRO, launching America's first ever CRO treasury, empowering the Kronos blockchain. This is more than a partnership. It's the future of finance built in America. For more, visit Crypto.com, where millions trade CRO every day.
Tired of being told no by your doctor, your pharmacy, or worse, your insurance company? You're not alone. Millions of Americans are waking up to a broken healthcare system. That's why more and more people are turning to All Family Pharmacy. We believe in medical freedom. We deliver the prescription and the medication, all from licensed U.S. doctors and pharmacists, from ivermectin and trusted antibiotics to maintenance medications, even NAD+, the revolutionary anti-aging supplement. Use code RSBN10 at checkout for 10% off your first order.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. We're covering the latest from the Trump White House, so from the United States Department of Agriculture and their meeting this morning, to the House GOP leadership on the Hill. We'll bring you also some extra coverage of the AUKUS discussions that you saw yesterday, the Australia, United Kingdom, and United States trilateral security arrangement that in a way mirrors a NATO, not as large, perhaps as large in terms of GDP and also military equipment surrounding the Indo-Pacific, as we saw this Sunday celebrating, remembering really the 84th anniversary of the date which will live in infamy, to quote the 32nd president of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, asking the Congress to declare war on the Empire of Japan after the dastardly attack that cost thousands of lives and so many injuries and really harmed the United States Pacific Fleet, but wounded us, but tested our resolve in a way where we became stronger than ever before, and in turn saved the world and countless continents from fascism and ultimately communism in the Cold War that followed World War II. Only 12 of those survivors from Pearl Harbor remain with us in the present day. If you have an opportunity to talk to a World War veteran, it is something that is quite life-changing. And I can remember even back in the fifth grade, again, dating myself in this, I had a history teacher that I wasn't exactly fond of per se, but she helped create this free speech warrior in me for challenging many of my ideas and the research that I did cite back then. But the respect that I did have for her family, her father happened to be a survivor of the Holocaust, was a child at one of the camps and had a tattoo on his arm, as many of the people who had to go there into literally the depths of hell on earth. And that brought out history in real time in a way I had never seen it before. And it left an indelible mark on how we have to respond as citizens in this American golden era, in a time such as this, to fight for peace, to dialogue for peace, to speak with friend and foe, just as President Trump has put on display over the course of his tenure, as Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is doing on a daily basis with his counterpart at state, Mr. Marco Rubio, who is excelling at this, perhaps who has put even more miles via plane than even the president himself over the course of this less than a calendar year. But back home domestically, we're watching very closely as Pete Hegseth soon to deliver those remarks with AUKUS. It's wages that are being focused on based on that speech yesterday in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, in the Commonwealth, where President Trump has created a path through tariffs, through domestic policy, that Americans can gain in real wages. Again, under Biden, the auto pen administration, Americans losing that real wage purchasing power by $2,900 because inflation rose faster than wages. In President Trump's second term, even after the accounting for higher prices, Americans' real wages have grown by nearly 4%, or $700, on track to grow nearly $1,200 after this first calendar year. Now, on gas prices alone, Biden created a situation where they were higher than ever before, even during the Carter years when we saw inflation based on percentages skyrocket throughout the country. In President Trump's second term, gas prices have fallen to the lowest average price in 1,682 days, and Americans on track to spend the lowest amount of their disposable income on gas in the last 2 decades. In fact, average gas prices have dipped below $3 per gallon in 36 states, $2.75 per gallon in 20 states, and below $2.50 per gallon in 5 states, with prices below $2 a gallon in at least 4 states, including Colorado, where it's averaging $1.69 out west in the mountain regions. Now, at the beginning of December, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate was 6.919%, 12% lower than President Trump took office in January. This is according to a consumer price index, shelter inflation at a 4-year low on grocery prices under President Trump's leadership. The prices continue to fall for eggs and butter and ice cream, including seafood and rice, pasta, ham, all of those great things you'll be assembling for your Christmas celebrations. Now, on everything else, the Trump administration's whole of government effort will continue driving prices down, boosting take-home pay, and strengthening the economy so all Americans can feel relief. We were there on the ground in Tucson, Arizona, when the call was made for no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. We want to keep seniors in their homes. We want to keep them in their zip codes and where they're comfortable doing just that, and this brings that much needed relief. The landmark legislation that took place on this will raise Americans' wages by as much as $13,300 and wages by as much as $11,600 on average, all tied to the one big, beautiful bill earlier in the summertime. Just a few months ago, how quickly this year has moved. But in this season of giving, we remember what's most important in life, getting together with family and friends this cherished time of year as we celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. President Trump reminding us of that with First Lady Melania Trump at that national Christmas tree lighting just days ago. But it also is cold and flu season, and allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN working overtime for you to get you these essential medications to have stocked up in your medicine cabinet or to take on the road, as most Americans will be traveling than ever before by plane, train, and automobile just days from now. Your must-have meds for this holiday season, use code RSBN10. That's 10% off your order. Tamiflu antibiotics, the antivirals, ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue. Many of these you can't get from the pharmacist down the street, but this online pharmacy, there's no red tape or bureaucracy. Simply a licensed U.S. doctor to review your order and send right to your door just days after you order it. So go to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and take advantage of these life-saving off-label generics at RSBN10. That's the code for 10% off today. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And then when you're done with that, give a call to my friend Scott Cheney out west in the City of Angels in California for monetary gold as well as security preservation. Grab that complimentary presidential gold guide today, 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently for life. RSBNforthegold.com. That's RSBNforthegold.com. With banks failing and the central banks, those big ones that you might not hear about that work with the BRICS nations to divest from the American dollar, they're buying up gold and silver. It's a dirty little secret in globalism. So what are you to do when you want to purchase that first property? We know that it's becoming later and later in life where Americans do that, including marriage and family. It's a risk to our civilization. But gold and silver might be able to help with the diversification, or you might simply want to build that generational wealth for your family. What the heck do you have to lose? As President Trump said in 2016, grab that presidential gold guide today. It could be a memento if nothing else, but then you can find that direct plan that will work with Scott's team and for you. 888-617-7994, RSBNforthegold.com. Thank you as well to Angel Paste, the original miracle cream, the orange option, the natural facial spray. Again, all natural, non-GMO, no chemicals, vitamin B infused, vitamin C infused with the orange option. A great stocking stuffer this year. Perhaps if you've been on the nice list, Santa will bring it down the chimney for you. This is a Christian-owned company. They hire veterans as well. They're based in the great Lone Star State of Texas in Spring, in that Houston metroplex that's just off of the Gulf of America. A wonderful place to live in the United States of America. Grab the experience that is the miracle at angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. Moments from now, we'll have Secretary of War Pete Hegseth delivering remarks regarding AUKUS, hosting the Foreign Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia. At the turn of that, we'll be joined by Supervisor Jim Desmond of San Diego County out west. Very generous to share his time. He's also a congressional candidate for the 49th District in California to talk on a few issues on illegal immigration and what some of these blue states are doing. It's really wild if you've been following the news this week. In the meantime, we'll go to the Secretary of War for his recent comments.
Only out of goodness, because the strength of our alliances, our bilateral relationships, trilateral relationships are as strong as they've ever been. And as President Trump has laid out from the beginning, the president loves supporting countries that step up. And whether it's in the Indo-Pacific or on the continent, the discussions we've had are a reflection of both Australia and the UK stepping up. And you see through AUKUS and the review that we conducted, a continued commitment to a pragmatic, practical application of hard power between our countries that reflect peace through strength and also hard power, real capabilities that demonstrate a deterrent effect that we all want. We may lead our departments of war, ministers of defense, but our goal is peace on behalf of the American people, the Australian people, and the UK, and we pursue that together on behalf of our leadership. So it's a privilege to have you at the Pentagon. Look forward to talking more in depth about AUKUS and our partnerships. And I would be remiss also, John, if I didn't mention the passing of your paratrooper in Ukraine. And we're certainly, our thoughts and prayers go out to you and to him and his family. And it's a reflection of the sacrifice and commitment of so many, that so many make around the world. So thank you both for being here. Welcome to the Pentagon. Look forward to our discussions. Richard.
Thank you. Well, let me start there and also pass on my condolences, John, to George Hooley's family, and you know, we are all very much thinking of you at this moment. Pete and John, it is fantastic to be here and to be here with both of you at what is the 4th AUKUS Defence Ministers meeting, and we are very excited about the progress that we're making in relation to AUKUS and what we will be talking about today. It's only 6 weeks since the President and Prime Minister of Australia met, where the President invoked us all to move ahead on AUKUS full steam ahead, and that really has been something of a motto for the way in which we have been going about our work. This is the first AUKUS Defence Ministers meeting where we've been meeting with you, Pete, so it's great to be doing this with you. And I just also say we had a fantastic AUSMIN, our 2+2 meeting with the US on Monday, and thank you very much for that. The last 12 months has seen a lot of progress in relation to AUKUS. In the last 6 weeks, we've had the USS Vermont in HMAS Stirling, south of Perth in Australia, undertaking the most extensive maintenance of an American nuclear-powered submarine outside of America ever. And it is an example of what we are doing together. But this is a massive project, and there is so much more to do. And it's really important that we are looking at the ways in which we can now get on with this and deliver it. And I think delivery is very much the focus of the conversation that we will be having today. I'm very excited about what we can do together, the progress that we're making, but the challenges that we both need, all of us need to grab hold of as we move forward. And again, thank you, the both of you, for having this meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your remarks about Lance Corporal George Hooley. I will pass those on to his family. I know they will appreciate that, your sentiments, and it's a reminder for us all the risks that our servicemen and women put themselves at in order to keep the rest of us safe. Pete, thank you in particular for welcoming us to the Pentagon, bringing us together in this way here in Washington, but thank you also for the spirit of cooperation which guided your department's work during their recent review of AUKUS. For the UK, AUKUS is quite simply the most important military collaboration for the last 70 years. Since the US and the UK first agreed in this great city in 1958 to share nuclear technology. And just as it was back then, this partnership will be a foundation for the shared security for generations to come. So this is a big moment. It's a big moment for AUKUS. It's a big moment for three nations together. It is, as President Trump has said, the moment of full steam ahead for AUKUS. And it's right that all three governments, as newly elected governments, have carried out a review of AUKUS. Those reviews are now done, and all three of us are now determined to reboot AUKUS with a new commitment and a new determination, in particular, to deliver. So the reviews are done. It's time to deliver. And when we talk about delivery, we talk about the most powerful, most feared attack submarine the world has ever seen, the apex predator of the seas. And we talk about delivering the technologies of the future, putting our warfighters one step ahead of our adversaries, reinforcing our deterrence in the face of adversaries, and we talk about putting our industries at the leading edge of new export markets. Pete, you said your mission and the mission of AUKUS is peace. And you've often argued it's peace through strength. And AUKUS embodies the way that a nation can secure strength through alliances. And in the face of this new era, we need those alliances more than ever. We need more subs in the Indo-Pacific and in the Euro-Atlantic. We need more burden sharing by America's closest allies in Australia and the UK. And as the UK steps up on European security, we know that each of the three nations have a role to play to protect our people, to keep our citizens safe, and to reinforce that global deterrence. But we are clear as well, this isn't just about strengthening our shared security. AUKUS is also about an engine for growth that will lead to new jobs, new skills, thriving businesses in all three nations. And in the UK alone, since our government was elected last year, we've created over 3,000 new jobs in the nuclear sites. We've committed £6 billion, $8 billion investment, new investment, to boost production in our shipyards and to deliver up to 12 of the most advanced attack submarines ever to sail under the Royal Navy ensign. Pete, I say to you, Richard, I say to you, the UK is all in on AUKUS. And as our three nations, which share a long friendship, work together on AUKUS, we extend that friendship long into the future. The generations ahead of us will share its strength, they will inherit its security, and in the jobs that we create, in the technologies that we develop, and in the peace that we preserve. I look forward to working with you both in the months and the years ahead to deliver this most important programme. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Richard, thank you. Thank you, Richard.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, along with Australian and UK representatives, strengthening that trilateral security agreement there in Washington, D.C. We are joined by California congressional candidate Supervisor Jim Desmond. It's the 5th District of San Diego County, running for the 49th District for the United States House of Representatives. Supervisor Desmond, thank you for joining us. We're seeing across certain states, Illinois is one of them, California, your home state, is another, where these sanctuary laws are becoming really a hindrance to federal agencies, specifically ICE in law enforcement. Can you give us some additional information on this clear ordinance? Is this specifically coming from a proposal on the San Diego County Board of Supervisors that would block ICE from entering non-public areas of county facilities without a judicial warrant?
Well, that's exactly what my colleagues put forward and voted on yesterday. Unfortunately, I'm on the wrong end of a 3-2 at the Board of Supervisors, and it passed. And really, what these sanctuary laws are doing are forcing ICE agents to get criminals and to do it out in public, as opposed to being able to work with local law enforcement. And so what this clear program that they put forward did is really limits law enforcement agencies from working together and or limiting them from certain spaces. If we've got somebody that's a criminal, somebody that's an illegal alien that's in a non-public area of the county building, we can't allow them to go in. And much to go even further, they have voted to put signage that says this is a safe area and ICE agents are not welcome. This is one of the reasons why, unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago over the Thanksgiving holiday, we had two children that were killed in car accidents. One of them, one of the drivers of the other car that caused the accident, had two DUIs previously. Now, even on the second DUI, local law enforcement is not on either of the DUIs. The law enforcement was not able to contact ICE and let them know, hey, we've got this person, they're here illegally, and they've got two DUIs on them now. Local law enforcement cannot contact ICE or immigration and let them know. The other one, it was an 8-year-old child. It was a hit and run, and that person was deported 4 times already. But again, local law enforcement can't do anything about that because of the sanctuary laws in California. Local law enforcement can't notify ICE, which would be a lot easier to hand people over to ICE in those situations as opposed to the raids that you see where people are filming and people are protesting. Instead, it would be a lot easier if local law enforcement could work together with ICE to get these criminals off our streets.
Yes, and we see the tragedy of the people that you hear about these stories from California to Georgia and really everywhere in between across this great country. Every one of our states really has become a border state as a result of these insane sanctuary policies. Why do you think for the far left they're so committed to this idea of allowing these people back onto the streets when they violated the laws on countless occasions?
I just don't think they don't care. I guess they're looking for voters, or they're looking for victims. Where were they when we had in 2023 we had over 100,000 people, mostly young people, die in this country because of fentanyl and because it was coming across open borders. People were not being vetted. They're carrying backpacks. We have no idea it was in there. Where are they? How come they're not crying out for those U.S. families that lost their children who, due to wide open border policies, died of fentanyl? In the Vietnam War, we unfortunately lost 50,000 people. In 2023, for fentanyl, we lost 100,000 people. This is a war against us using fentanyl, using the border, and allowing China to bring in these chemicals for fentanyl. It makes no sense to me, and I'm hoping the electorate wakes up here, particularly in the midterms, and starts electing other people that are willing to work with law enforcement to keep us safe.
And to your point, Jim, in the sophomore year of the Biden administration, Dr. Sebastian Gorka talking to a Heritage Foundation dinner recently this year on this topic, that we lost more young people in 1 year alone. If you combine the military conflicts that America was involved in from Korea onto Operation Iraqi Freedom and the War on Terror, if you combine all those post-World War II draft and volunteer, it's still more people dying of this poisoning. So it's a shocking revelation of what's taken place and the lives lost in these years. And I'm sure you know of stories directly to, I remember that very video, I believe it was a decade ago in San Diego County, when I think fentanyl was coming more into the homes around the minds of Americans. And we saw that San Diego County police officer get a sniff of it just going into the car searching for drugs. And my God, if it wasn't for the reverse drug to help revive him, his life would have been lost. And I think people realize that just a thimble of this can actually kill people.
And what you're seeing is more sympathy for the people that are here illegally and committing crimes than there is for the Americans and the American lives that have been lost. They don't even, the left doesn't even consider those types of circumstances that, hey, Americans are dying, and here you are protecting people that are in the country illegally and committing crimes. They should all be deported, and we need to be able to have local law enforcement work together. I don't know if you had time, but it's 9/11. when 9/11 happened, they had a committee right after 9/11 saying, hey, okay, what went wrong here? How can we prevent this from ever happening again? And what they determined was law enforcement agencies were not working together. The FBI, the CIA, the NSA, even local law enforcement agencies. They all had pieces of information if something might, be up, but it wasn't really put together. It wasn't until law enforcement starts working together that we're able to keep people safe. And the more hands we tie of law enforcement, the more ability people have to, commit crimes, as we see these horrendous crimes being committed by people that shouldn't be here legally in the first place.
I think that's an excellent point, Supervisor Desmond, regarding this specific issue, because even former President George W. Bush, whether or not people supported him, spoke on that bureaucracy and the fact that that day that happened, police and fire even were not able to have robust communications because of the services at that time. And that's why they started the Department of Homeland Security. And it reminds us, President Trump saying, I knew it was bad in his first term. I didn't know it was this bad in regards to that bureaucracy that can literally, no pun intended, handcuff our very civil servants. So this vote is happening today at 9 o'clock your time, I believe, on this ordinance.
Took place yesterday and it passed.
Oh, it did pass. So that was a 3-2 vote there.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but that's what happened. And we got to let law enforcement do their job. And like I said, the left is honoring and holding up and rooting for the criminals as opposed to U.S. citizens that are being harmed by them.
Now, how do you plan to take this to Congress? Is there anything that could be done in addition at the federal level outside of the executive branch in Article 2 to make sure that these borders remain secured? Because the Trump administration has found 62,000 children that were trafficked of the relatively 300,000 plus lost during the Biden administration.
Well, I mean, thank God, President Trump on day one secured the border. I mean, that he absolutely did that, and that stopped, not only people coming here illegally, but stopped a vast majority of the drugs that were coming into our country. Now you see them, they're trying with boats and things like that, and thank God, he's going after them. So, we need an immigration program that works. And that's something I want to work on when I get to Congress, is work with, even if I have to go across the aisle and to get this done, but we need an immigration system that works. Right now, it takes years for us to let somebody into our country. And maybe these are people we want. And there's jobs, there's farmers, there's restaurants, there's carpentry and those types of jobs available. We should have a system that works, that allows people to be vetted and to be able to come across the border with their heads held high with dignity and be able to come back and forth into our country and help us, be a greater place and help them as well. But right now, the system doesn't work that way. You have to hire a coyote or you come in under a fence or over a fence. We need a better system that works, I think, for both sides of the border. And quite frankly, it's our mess to fix.
No question about that. And additionally, with that security along the border, the port question comes into call with San Diego, of course, Miami, Florida. I think of these ports where Venezuelan traffickers trying to come in. We've seen the U.S. Coast Guard, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, and our military really taking care of business. Now, what say you as a supervisor on a coastal area with many ports that have many goods coming in and out? Is this something that is okay for President Trump to authorize as commander-in-chief, or do our friends on the Democrat side have some legitimacy in saying that, oh, we'd like to go through the process and make sure that these are actually drug boats that are in these waters?
I think people are jumping to conclusions on this. I'm assuming there's a lot more intelligence that we're watching these boats as they leave Venezuela, and we're watching them, from the air by drones, whatever the case may be, and knowingly that these are drug-carrying vessels. There's no doubt about it when you see the videos and you see the pictures. And once again, the left is going and saying and wanting to protect these smugglers. They want to protect them. where was, and I've heard from them say to me, well, where's the due process for these people? Well, where was the due process for those families that lost their children, 100,000 children? Where was the due process for them when they lost their children due to fentanyl? There was no due process against the president or against this open border issues. But we did, during the Biden administration, we had hundreds. We actually, we don't even know how many, but we had hundreds of boats that we know of that came onto our shores here in San Diego County. And we've got video of them just dropping off, like a half a dozen or a dozen people or more out of these ponga boats that would just land on our beaches. They'd abandon the boats. They'd walk into our neighborhoods and disappear. These people weren't vetted at all. We have absolutely no idea who they are and where they went into our country. And that's really what scares me. At least if they came back across the border and presented before the Border Patrol and said they asked for asylum, at least they were fingerprinted and got a photograph taken. That was what was done mostly. But the ones that are coming across on boats and just walking into our country, that's what's really scary, and you have no idea what they're carrying in. We got to stop all these drugs coming in. This is saving lives by taking out these people smuggling drugs out in open waters into our country.
And I wanted to ask an update on, you had EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin out to San Diego County. All of that sewage that for years being dumped into American waters from Mexico, has that now been remedied? Because we had our Navy SEALs really off of Coronado doing all those trainings and sometimes getting very, very ill as a result of that. Has anything been solved regarding that matter?
Well, it's not solved yet. Unfortunately, it's still flowing into our country here. But what has been done, and Lee Zeldin came out and so did, and we got, the president talking about this issue now, primarily because of the SEALs. But Lee Zeldin, the head of the EPA, came out, and what he did in July of this year is he worked out an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, with the president of Mexico, and said, okay, you're going to commit to building this much infrastructure by the end, and I forget what the dates are, end of 2026 or end of 2027, that they're going to start putting in their own infrastructure to treat their sewage and to stop dumping it into our country. Unfortunately, the Tijuana River flows downhill into our country and then dumps out right, at Imperial Beach. And when that beach was closed for over 3 years and is still closed most of the time. So we've made progress with a memorandum of understanding for them to build the infrastructure. And what I want to do when I get to Congress is make sure that Mexico lives up to their end of the deal, so that they're building the infrastructure, they're building the treatment plants, they're building that on their side and taking care of that instead of dumping it onto the U.S. side. And so I want to make sure that that happens when I get to Congress and hold Mexico to it. I'm hoping that for the best, but we got to prepare and make sure that we hold their feet to the fire.
And President Trump offering up via Truth Social a 5% increase in tariffs if 200,000 acres or liters of water coming into mostly Texas, but along that border, specifically for farmlands needed by our farmers and ranchers along that southern border. Supervisor Jim Desmond, thank you so much for joining us in your pursuit for Congress in the 49th District of California. Where can people find your campaign and keep up with you during the midterms?
Well, DesmondForCongress.com. And it's pretty simple. And you can log on there. You can sign up to volunteer. You can sign up to make donations. You can see what my platform is. But I'm a common sense person. I'm an engineer. I'm not a lawyer. I just want to go and fix things. And I think, this is a great opportunity. Our country, there's some issues that need to be worked on, not only immigration, but energy, mental health and people's health, and keeping the American dream so this next generation is not shut out of housing.
Absolutely. Very big points with the local focus and global awareness, and we can make California great again. One of my favorite places, San Diego County. Thank you for joining us. Supervisor Jim Desmond, running for Congress in the 49th District of California. Please come back and see us again on the right side of history.
Thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate the time.
And as we cover the latest from the Trump White House, inside and outside of the Beltway, and what matters most to you in this holiday season, we are very thankful for CovePure.com/RSBN, a great sponsor here at the network. It's really a great way to buy a machine that is leading the reverse osmosis movement with their Clearwave technology, removing 99.9% of the impurities out of the water, from fluoride to pesticides, agricultural runoff, and hormone-disrupting blockers like birth control. There's nowhere else to turn, quite frankly, other than covepure.com/RSBN. A great gift for those that are hard to shop for, and especially tea drinkers, because you can, as you can see right there, get the temperature right up to 170 in the snap of a dime right there. Also, if you're renting, no need for tubes for holes to be drilled and a plumber to come over and create that big mess, and then you're paying some fee for damaging your space. It's quite frankly, what you get is what you see there, as big or as little as a coffee maker, easy to fit right on that kitchen counter. And with the lead poisoning we saw in Flint, Michigan, what we just talked to Supervisor Desmond about with what's happening at Imperial Beach in California, protect what matters most, your natural drinking water. $250 off right now with the holiday sale, covepure.com/RSBN. Also, protect yourself online with Venice.ai/RSBN. Very important to do nowadays. Even the phone conversations, we were just speaking moments ago off camera about, can you imagine that Republicans passed the Patriot Act that gave authorizations to a number of different government entities to dial in and spy without that judicial approval. So in this AI technology and the leakings of emails and texts that we've seen really over the course of the last decade or so, Venice.ai/RSBN is really an essential tool to protect you online. App Store, Google Play, all 20% off now with code RSBN. And a lovely celebration to the holiday season. It's mypillow.com/RSBN. Save up to 80% this holiday season at mypillow.com. Again, /RSBN, promo code RSBN, easy to remember. Mike Lindell, he has a special announcement tomorrow. We interviewed him last week on The Voice of Reason. And Minnesota, there is hope in the future for all y'all, as they say down south. Now, his American-made manufacturing company, truly making what's best here in America, whether it's the MyPillow 1.0, the 2.0, the My Sheets 2, the Giza Dream Sheets that come all the way from the Mediterranean, but made right here in America. And those My Slippers, very comfy, and some of my favorite coffee out there, a free and fair trade option. It's the My Coffee. And thank you, Mike Lindell, for sponsoring us on the right side of history. We are very grateful for you here at the network as we cover the latest from the Trump White House in some extended coverage today, from the USDA to House GOP leadership and Speaker Mike Johnson. Also to Supervisor Jim Desmond out in California. So we're covering everything inside and outside of the Beltway in your neck of the woods. If you have a story for us, feedback at rsbn.tv. We want the good, the bad, and the ugly. And do you know that Home Alone is a Christian movie? I've been seeing this on YouTube and throughout Instagram, and I did not realize this until now. And I actually have a fun story to segue into because of this. You remember the character Kevin, played by Macaulay Culkin. Okay, he's walking outside of that North Shore church just north of Chicago. And I believe that was either shot in Winnetka or Waukegan, that specific church right there in a northern suburb of the city. Of course, the Home Alone house still there to view, and it's quite a sight if you're in Chicago for the holiday season. As he walks up to the manger scene and what that night was like in Bethlehem, he goes into the church, of course, feeling alone in this moment, as he has to take on these would-be robbers of his own home and defend his turf. And he runs into this Christ-like figure, Old Man Marley, who's initially scary, and people seem to not want to be around him as he's salting the earth, literally as Jesus salted the earth with his disciples and the apostles who went out over the course of 80 plus years to spread Christianity throughout modern Europe, modern Asia, northern Africa, to ultimately what we have now, an unbroken chain of disciples to present day 2025. And did you notice on that rap as the gentleman seeing his granddaughter sing in the church choir for those Advent lessons and carols, the wounds of Christ. And it's just from his hard manual labor, but you actually see where would be the nail marks. So it's going to give me a different vantage point of viewing Home Alone this year, as it's one of my favorite series. But what is your favorite Christmas movie or movies? Feedback at rsbn.tv. Now, the funny thing, that granddaughter, the little redhead that you saw in that, I actually know her. She's a lovely lady who was a wife of a music director I worked with back in my college days at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So that was a Hollywood moment there for you. And they're doing very well with many, many kids, happily married, and doing very well in Champaign, Illinois. So the latest from the Trump White House is a very Merry Christmas. We're seeing that throughout the office of the First Lady, where our illustrious First Lady, Melania Trump, really gets to shine in the holiday season with Home is Where the Heart Is. That is the theme of Christmas 2025 at the White House. If you have a chance to visit the White House, do that anytime you can, but especially this time of year. And I'm enjoying seeing friends and colleagues having that opportunity this Christmas season to see the showcase that is Home is Where the Heart Is. The First Lady this week also enjoying Toys for Tots with the United States Marines and Santa Claus. And Buddy the Elf was on hand for that as well, to get in the reason of the season, the spirit of giving that this Advent brings to us every single year. Maybe we take it throughout our entire year as well. With some breaking news, Miami electing its first Democrat mayor yesterday in nearly 3 decades. The United States and Venezuelan tensions continue to rise to a certain extent as American fighter jets have made their closest approach to Venezuela airspace. As of date, we know the USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest attack warship in the world, is in the Caribbean, and some military exercises happening throughout Central and Southern America. So we'll watch all of that as that continues to occur. There's rising natural gas prices in the meantime, even though gasoline prices going down at the moment, below $3 on average per gallon throughout the United States. The opposite is happening in another corner of the energy market. So we'll be watching that all very closely as, again, we are your go-to live desk for inside and outside of the Beltway, bringing you what is the most important things on hand this holiday season and beyond, as we're experiencing a golden era in America as we approach 2026 and 250 years of this extraordinary country. Again, thank you to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. It's the most wonderful time of year, and they at All Family Pharmacy really is that, an online family pharmacy that cares about you. They cherish this season just as we do here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and take advantage of their 10% off the must-have medications for this holiday season. Because sadly, this time of year, although the season's greetings are warm, it's still cold and flu season, and that low-level strain of COVID. Get what can solve those problems literally today. Tamiflu, antibiotics, ivermectin, much, much more. Hydrochloroquine, NAD+, methylene blue, 300+ essential medications and emergency medical kits, all made available for you. The right to try off-label generic options that your pharmacy down the street is all tied up in corporate bureaucracy and probably will not even prescribe it to you, especially ivermectin. That's been FDA approved for nearly a half century now. 10% off with code RSBN10. It's reviewed by a licensed physician. No insurance, no hassle, no red tape, just a pharmaceutical note at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Once you have that stocked up for the medicine cabinet and for your trip to see family by plane, train, or automobile this holiday season, grab that complimentary presidential gold guide and talk to my friend Scott Genet, the senior digital marketing manager and portfolio expert at Monetary Gold. 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate those annual IRA fees permanently and do what the central banks are doing, buying up gold and silver, tangible metals you can hold in your hand. Over $5,000 to even $6,000 an ounce with gold, $60 an ounce, silver not far behind that. RSBN for the gold.com. There's a reason why the BRICS nations divesting from the American dollar and the purchasing power failing over the last 2 decades by 40%. Paper money just doesn't cut it this day. So a great stocking stuffer for those young ones in your family, but also for yourself, for a property, purchasing power, and also getting that very first American dream in a home that so many of us do desire, on top of generational wealth, monetary gold, leading the way for you at RSBNforthegold.com. If you like what you see here at the network, please include us in your tithing outside of church and stocking stuffers for the family. We'd be really honored to have your dollars here, whether it's $2, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever you can afford. Support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network as we are leading the way in the new media as your go-to live desk. And you saw yesterday, too, in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, gearing up as your go-to rally network once again for a historic season of midterm elections in 2026. RSBnetwork.com/donate or text RSBN to 801-801. You can also send check or money order to the following address: 1550 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. The loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Thank you for everything that you have to offer here as great patriots viewing this All-American Network. Get All-America First updates and exclusive offers at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. And that's where you can like, share, and subscribe, so you don't miss a minute of the action. You can read in depth all of the issues affecting the American ethos. Great writers and op-ed journalists right here at the network. For all of my colleagues on the right side of history, enjoy your noon o'clock hour and tea time, or perhaps lunchtime on the East Coast, and still a good morning to you on the West Coast. All America First updates and exclusive offers again at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. I'm Robert McNeely. Have a wonderful day, and we will be back with you soon here on the right side of history.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.